Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. This one is an exciting one. I am reviewing Academy Arcanist by Shami Stovall. This is the first book in the Astro Academy series, a series that is taking place in the same universe as the Frith Chronicles, 50 years after the end of that series. Give or take. I was kind of guessing based on what characters in the book said. But this is basically high fantasy Pokemon. This is a world in which every character who wants to can try to bond with a mystical creature called an Eldrin. An Eldrin can literally be anything from any mythology you have ever heard of. It's an option. They have to complete a trial of worth, and then once they bond with that creature, they become an Arcanist with a little star on their forehead, and they can do magic, and they never die of old age, a whole bunch of stuff. And I loved the first series. I was sad when it was over. And so, of course, I was like, hey, Shami, if you want to send me that next series, let's go. And obviously, I was comparing it a lot to that series in my head, and I probably will be bringing up those comparisons into this one just because I think a lot of people who are coming into this book are coming from the Frith Chronicles because that is the first series that really took off. So I will be bringing it up, doing maybe a little bit of a compare and contrast for other people who have read that, but I will not be spoiling anything major from that series. This is the first in its own series. Off the top of my head, only one thing really gets spoiled. Only one major plot point from the previous series gets spoiled, and it's not on purpose. It's not like a character gives exposition that reveals the thing. It's literally just the presence of an Arcanist and their Eldrin reveals a thing from the series. Late in that series, I think the thing I'm thinking about happens like book 7 or 8, and that's basically it. Everything else you will catch references to. You might realize who that person is if you've read that series, but it's not going to reveal anything outright. Now, things might get revealed down the road. I am fully hoping for other cameos and things, but overall, it was really cool to hear the big events, like the big on the synopsis back cover events from the previous series, get like vaguely referenced as historical events that the kids are going to be learning about, and I'm really excited for that. I really do hope that happens. Like, how does everything that happened in the first book get referenced for the future generations? But the nice thing is that because this is a world where you have these magicians that don't like die of old age, you can have a ton of cameos from the end of the previous series because they didn't die, or at least not of old age. If they died, something happened. And there are a lot of things that, again, if you've read this series, you'll understand what certain things mean, and you'll maybe be excited to see those revealed, but it's not revealed in this one. So you can definitely jump into this book without fear of spoiling anything else. I cannot say it for the rest of the series yet, but let's jump into this one specifically. This is all about a kid named Gray who is plagued by nightmares. So far, so good. Only these nightmares have real-world consequences. Whenever the monsters in his nightmares attack him, he will have the same injuries in the real world. Now, his dad and stepmom don't believe him. They think he's just fallen out of bed or whatever. Only his brother Soren believes him. Fortunately, in his dreams, he is saved by this Arcanist, an ethereal Welk Arcanist who can go in dreams, and she informs him that if he can become an Arcanist, if he can find an Eldrin, complete the Trial of Worth, and achieve that status, he can come to the Astra Academy, and hopefully they can figure out more. But you cannot come to this academy if you are not an Arcanist. It's literally just for learning about Arcanist stuff. So he goes on that journey, and I will not be revealing to you what Arcanist he becomes yet, mostly because I am really impressed with how Shami managed to kind of do this whole thing without revealing it. I also did really like what the Trial of Worth was and what kind of Arcanist he became. I will say it was, again, another not traditional Trial of Worth, and I do want to see more traditional Trials of Worth. Honestly, I think what I would like most of all is I'd love like a short story collection in this universe where it's literally just characters competing Trials of Worth, because some of them are so interesting. But regardless, Gray as a character, at first glance, I thought he was going to be really similar to the protagonist of the previous series because they both are impoverished from families that are kind of looked down on from the island nations. And I'm like, okay, are we going to repeat this? I loved Volk. Volk was one of my favorite character archetypes. I loved his arcs in, you know, the still wanting to be the noble hero, but having to learn how to realistically do that in an imperfect world. Like, it was such a great, like, hero's journey. This one, Gray is definitely different than Volk, and that is to say, I like him less. Now, this is not on, well, it is on purpose. This is not to the fault of Shami Stovall. I get what she's going for. She's setting up a different character arc. It's just, you know, the character's got to be a jerk before they can go on the arc and improve type of things. Namely that whereas Volk had a certain kind of love for his island and a love for his family and still felt deeply connected to that area, but just wanted to be an Arcanist and leave because of the way some people look down on him, Gray thinks so little of his family and so little of his island, and he's just ready to be done, and he's just ready to wash his hands of it. And he's a lot more of a jerk than Volk was. His brother Soren has to push him to help others constantly, and Soren is currently my favorite because he is my other favorite character archetype, which is a giant mountain of a man or mountain of a person who is actually just the sweetest, gentlest, most artistic soul that doesn't actually want to hurt anything. I love that archetype. And Soren does that beautifully. He like speaks in verse and comes up with poetry, and it embarrasses Gray to no end, which also made me annoyed. Like, you appreciate your brother's poetry. But fantastic. I also love the sibling dynamic here too. And they are biological twins. So I'm really hoping we're not going to do a repeat of the will they, won't they of the adopted siblings from the previous series. Please no. I don't think Shami Stovall would actually do that. I just had to bring it up as another comparison. There is a sibling involved, but I'm pretty sure we're not going to have that situation again. The actual Astra Academy. Fun fact, I don't actually like magical school books all that much. Mostly because I work in a school and I have to do so many trainings and things for how to keep students like healthy and safe, and I have to wear specific keys in case of lockdowns and all that kind of stuff, that when I read magic school books and the professors just like let the kids get into horribly dangerous situations constantly, it breaks my immersion more than the magic. Like, I'm like, why are all these staff people letting their kids get into horrifically dangerous situations for no apparent reason? And also, I struggle with a lot of magic school books because it feels like they just took a school and then like switched out some parts of the curriculum, and that's it. So instead of history, it's history of elves. And it's like, that's all you did with that premise? Thankfully, this one is a little bit, the professors are doing a little bit more, and the professors that are out of it and not doing the right thing do get reamed over the coals like this. You are not doing your job correctly. Why? And also, they have a setup that is very similar to the setup of the Frith Chronicles, where rather than a bunch of kids going to super busy filled classrooms full of other kids, they have the same group of students among them, I believe 9, and they all go to class together. So you're still going to get that group dynamic you had among the apprentices of the previous series. And you can already, at the end of this book, start to see a lot of specific dynamics forming. Who is already like in a flirtationship with who else, who is suspicious of who else, who just doesn't like anyone, like that kind of stuff. You can kind of see those things starting to form. I love the character of Nini. She was one of my favorites. And in general, it definitely feels different. There are definitely a lot of different dynamics, specifically because this one has a lot more talk about class, because half of the group that they're in, half of the class were people that had to come to the academy to like get their Eldrin in the menagerie because they did not have any access to it, and half of them were like super fancy noble people with tutors and such. So there's definitely going to be a lot of talk, I think, about the divide between, you know, the people who went boating on tiny boats for fun and the people who went on boats to fish because they were on an island. Like, there's a lot of differences between that, and I like that aspect. I think I'm going to like that ongoing theme and having to essentially cross the bounds. I also liked how it is a continuation. Again, without spoiling anything, you can see why the headmaster specifically wanted to offer access to kids that are from more impoverished backgrounds, and you know who the probable, like, the muse for that idea was, and I love that concept. But in general, I really liked it. The only thing that I took off a star for was the plot. The pacing of the plot was a lot slower because while yes, the whole thing of what Eldrin is Greg gonna end up with, that's solved fairly early in the story, and the actual meat and bones of the conflict is a different thing. And at first I thought that different thing conflict was going to be just a random subplot, and it took me until like the halfway mark to be like, oh no, this is the plot, this is what we're doing. Okay, like it definitely was not quite as here's the thing we must do that a lot of the first series books had. This one was a lot more meandering. However, we did still have that good classic Shami Stovall ending, which if you've read anything from this author, again, this is the 12th book that I've read, and if the one thing I've learned about this author is she likes herself a gigantic, bombastic ending, preferably with a giant creature, and this one definitely had that bombastic ending with a giant creature and a reveal, several reveals. And the one thing I really liked about this is that this book's ending seems to, because I've read the synopsis for the next book, seems to have very far-reaching consequences, because I feel like in the previous series, the ending of the first book just revealed something that had already been going on, whereas this one, it's like, no, this is the thing that the rest of the series now has to deal with. And I like that concept. It made it feel really, really impactful that this is going to be the thing that's setting up the conflict for the entire series. And I will definitely be looking forward to that. Obviously, I'm going to be continuing with this series. I am happy to be back in this world. I love all the little changes because like 50 years have passed. So there's like these little technological changes, like people aren't really using candles anymore, and there's this strange new thing called a steamboat. Like getting to watch the world slowly change into a new age in real time is so cool. I love that aspect. Again, I am super fingers crossed hoping for some cameos. There are a lot of characters that I really want to see make a comeback. What are they up to now? There are definitely some things in the world I hope get explored more later. Like, I really want this book to be queer norm now. I really want like full-on marriage equality, because the previous series had how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, I'm trying to count how many queer relationships the previous book had. And I shipped all of them ahead of time. I'm telling you this now. I am so proud of myself. I called all of them ahead of time. But I want to see them all married now in this one. If not now, then add it in, Shami. I want to see, you know who I want to see together. You know who I've shipped since the beginning, Shami, since the first time that nickname came out. You know what I want. I did enjoy getting to see them too. Thank you. But editing Margaret here, I totally forgot. There is, in fact, queer norm marriage in this world. It was a throwaway line one woman made about her wife leaving her. But yes, there is. However, I still require canonical proof that all the queer couples from the previous series got together. I need to see it have happened. Regardless, I gave the book 4 stars. So excited to jump into another Shami Stovall series, even though technically I was still in the middle of 2 other Shami Stovall series when this one came out, but I get why she's focusing on this series the most. It's the biggest one she has. It's the big money maker. Get your bag. I will be here to read all of them and love every second. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.